we go. They're constantly changing things. So here we go. Hey, everybody, and welcome. I'm Nancy, the founder and president of Invisible Warriors. 1 out of every 2 adult Americans lives with at least one chronic illness, often called an invisible disability. The disability community is the largest minority in the world, yet instead of feeling inclusive and wrapped in camaraderie, most of us feel alone, unvalued, and unworthy. We need doctors who understand us and colleagues and family members who believe us when we tell them something about our health. Just knowing the simple fact that we are not alone and still have much to offer can be life-changing. In this podcast, we share tips and strategies, knowledge and support. In other words, hope, for those who are looking for resources to help them maintain a thriving, successful life. Do you have a chronic illness? Well, here at Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly, we have conversations that share the tools and mindsets others use to make our lives better. It is always good to know that there are others out there that have dealt with similar challenges, and our guest today is going to share with us their history and what they've learned along the way. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me, Nancy. I'm excited to be here.
Kate, give us a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and why we connected.
Yeah, so my name is Kate Milligan, and I'm the founder of One Girl Revolution and the host of the One Girl Revolution podcast. And I started it 4 years ago as an outlet to highlight the stories of everyday women and girls who are making a difference in the world. And you and I got connected because of the great work that you're doing with Invisible Warriors. And so you're going to be on the podcast. I'm really excited to have you and share the incredible work that you're doing with Invisible Warriors. And then we connected over your podcast, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've learned a little bit about you and about what's going on with your life. And I'm really interested in a couple of different topics that I'd like to delve into a little bit. First, I know that you know what it's like to have an invisible disability. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that, tell us a little bit about what that is and how living with an invisible disability has affected you.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I was born with a rare immune deficiency. When I was born with it, they didn't know anything about it. It's called Job syndrome. So for the first 4 years of my life, I had terrible eczema, terrible food allergies. I would itch all of my hair out. So people oftentimes thought that I was going through chemotherapy as a child. I had terrible, terrible eczema. So part of Job syndrome is our bodies make more white blood cells than red. So we can't fight off illnesses or sickness. I know during COVID, there was a lot of concern about us getting COVID because our lungs are not as strong as other people's. But for the first 4 years of my life, it just looked like raw skin, eczema. And so that's all that doctors could tell my mom, tell my parents that I had, like, oh, she just has eczema. She just is a sensitive little person. And then when I was 4 years old, my youngest sister, Delia, was a baby, and she was really sick in a lot of different ways as a baby. And University of Michigan started testing her. And then they were like, hey, can we test Kate as well? We think there's something else going on. And they ended up identifying that both of us had this rare immune deficiency, Job syndrome. And at the time, there were only 25 documented cases in the world, 25 cases in the entire world.
That really is a rare disease.
Very rare. And now today, I'm 38 years old, and today there are only 250 cases, documented cases in the world. So it's still something that they don't know a whole lot about. I'm on a Facebook group where people share their different stories. I think in a lot of ways, my sister and I are very healthy. We haven't been hospitalized since we were children. And when we were first diagnosed with it, they had told my parents, oh, your kids will be hospitalized 6 to 8 times a year. But we haven't been hospitalized since we were little kids. A lot of that is food, watching what we eat and staying away from things that take away from our immune system. We really try to build up our immune system because we know walking around with an invisible illness that we are just more susceptible to things. and then taking vitamins and just trying to live a healthy lifestyle. I know a lot of people deal with invisible illnesses in a lot of different ways, but that has just been, all of those different pieces have played a role in our lives. I still get eczema. I have some on my arms right now. I still have little bouts of what I once had, but it's nowhere near as terrible as it was as a little kid. I think I've learned so much. It's definitely formed me into who I am. I think I'm a more empathetic person because of the things that I've been through. One of my earliest memories, well, a bunch of early memories kind of all joined into one, is I was terribly bullied in school, which I think a lot of people can relate to because of my skin, because of what I looked like, because I didn't have a lot of hair. My mom would like beautifully like French braid my hair with what little hair I had, just to make me feel pretty and put ribbons in it. But I still was terribly bullied by kids in school, not invited to things because Kate has rash and she can't come and we're going to catch her rash, or not invited to be on kids' teams and all that kind of stuff. But one of my earliest memories is the polar opposite of that. This little girl in my class, Megan Green, shout out to Megan Green, one time touched my skin and says, "Katie, does this hurt?" And just that little moment has stuck with me, Nancy. And I think we have those opportunities in our lives. We never know what somebody is going through. Invisible illnesses, a lot of people we don't know, we can't see them. So people are walking with carrying these heavy burdens and we don't know. But that moment where this little girl, my little classmate, just stopped, looked at my skin and said, "Katie, does that hurt?" And that has been that was such a pivotal moment in my life. I don't think she even knows that she did that and probably doesn't even remember it, but I have kept that with me and really strive to emulate that in my life today.
I think that's really important. And I'm really involved in all of these discussions on social media, and there's a big one now that's going on where you have they're called microaggressions. And I think it's a sign of our times. And I just want to smack people because you have to be so careful about what you say. And you can't say anything that's going to hurt somebody's feelings or whatever, and that could very well be classified as a microaggression. But in reality, it's what changed your life. It's what really made things better for you. And I think if we're so afraid when we find out that somebody's got some sort of an illness, we either want to run from it because we're afraid, oh, we're going to catch their rash, or we don't know what to say. And I think it's so much better to just say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're going through, but does it hurt?" Trying to get more awareness of what's going on in that other person's life, and just us being gracious enough to understand that they don't know what we're going through, but they're trying.
Yes,
What do you think about that?
striving to understand is exactly right. I have a lot of food allergies. I stay away from gluten, dairy, eggs, nuts, terribly allergic to nuts. And I have been my whole life. I was told when I was younger that, I would grow out of it and I'd grow out of eczema. And that obviously has not happened, which is fine. I just have learned to live like that. And I have people, oftentimes I'll be at a restaurant or dinner or something. And I know that there are a lot of people that have preferences, right? Like gluten-free preference is a preference. But there are also a lot of people that have allergies. And even like as an adult, I'll get hassled by people like, "Oh, you don't want that. You don't want that." But what's really beautiful is all of my friends joke that I've taught them how to live with food allergies. So even like if their kids have food allergies, it's not scary to them because they just know how to deal with it. And they're like, "Oh, Kate's coming over to dinner. Let me just bop, bop, bop. Like, let me figure out how I can do something that's gluten-free or dairy-free or keep the sauce off." And it just normalizes it. And I think that we need to be normalizing things like that in our lives, right? Like we need to be talking about, I think it's important for people with invisible illnesses as they feel comfortable to share about it, to share about your food allergies, to share about things that are going on in your life, because that's the only way that we're going to change the culture to really create a space for compassion, for empathy. Compassion is such an important word, which I feel like a lot of times in our world we've lost sight of. We need to have compassion and empathy for people. And just like you said, strive to understand. I don't understand what you go through on a daily basis, Nancy, but I can strive to understand. I can strive to be there for you as my friend. And that's all we can do. I have friends who are in wheelchairs because of different spinal cord injuries and other things. And it's like, I don't understand what their life is like on a daily basis. And I don't strive to, but I can step up and be a friend to them and strive to understand and strive to find an ADA compliant restaurant, strive to ask questions, strive to be there for them as a friend. And I think we all have that responsibility. And it doesn't just have to be your friends and family. Look around you, see somebody at a grocery store who might be struggling, and don't judge them. Don't judge them for driving around on a motorized wheelchair just because maybe they had a rough day and they can't walk through the grocery store. I know that sometimes I feel like I want to do that. Like I can't, I don't feel like I have the energy to walk through the store or carry all my stuff. And so we need to stop judging people for what we think their life is like. We don't know, but strive to understand, strive to ask questions, strive to see people like that little girl Megan did to me, see what's going on and ask questions and just show other people compassion.
There's a story that I read a few weeks ago on LinkedIn by a guy big burly guy. He had lost a limb. I can't remember whether it was an arm or a leg, but he had lost one of his limbs, and he was parking in a handicap spot. And as he's getting out of the car and walking into the store, somebody comes up to him and says, I saw that parking spot and I wanted to make sure that you got it and that everything was okay because I know you need it. But he turned to him and he said, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really important. However, that's not why I'm parking in that handicap spot. I'm parking there because I have diabetes and I have brittle diabetes. And at any moment in time, my sugars can crash and I can become unconscious. So I need to be parked close to where I can get into someplace and get some food or get some sugar or get something if I need it. And the nice person who had been so caring and concerned about him with his missing limb went, oh, well, if that's the reason you're parking there, you should save it for somebody who really needs it, and turned and walked away. Yeah, I'm going, I cannot believe that. But that's the state of our lives these days.
Yeah. And also we have a responsibility too, to know when it's acceptable for us to do those types of things. I trust that man that he knows his diabetes better than anyone, and he's going to take that because he needs it. Because we live in a culture that is very focused on self, right? Like, I deserve this. I worked really hard and I get to say, I deserve the closest space. No, we don't deserve anything. We don't. And we need to also there's kindness in taking time to recognize like what is good for us to do, what is good and right for us as a human being to do, and how we can help others. And so, yeah, that's unacceptable what that guy did.
Well, and I have another story which is just as hilarious, and that's me. I was actually parked in a non-handicap spot one day, and I have handicap tags, and the back of my car has the place for my wheelchair and all of that on it. But I was parked in a non-handicap spot, and I was sitting there with my eyes closed, trying to catch my breath after I'd been in the mall for a while, going around trying to do some things. And there's this banging on the window of the driver's side of my car, and I kind of jumped and rolled down the window, and I said, what can I help you with? I got yelled at for not parking in a handicap spot and for taking a close in non-handicap spot away from somebody who didn't need a handicap spot.
Oh my gosh. That's the thing, is we can't win, right? It's like, you can't win. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, as the old saying says. But we need to know ourselves and we need to know our situation, and also recognize that other people are doing, we have to trust them that they're doing the right thing, what they're supposed to be doing.
And I think that's why it's so important for organizations like yours and mine that we are out there being silent no more and shouting that, this is life, this is the world, these are situations. Get to understand things and be more kind and supportive, and don't be always looking down your noses at somebody, or whatever the phrase is that you want to use, but be, you never know what's going on in someone's life, and it may be health, it may be a mental issue, a mental challenge, depression, frustration. It may be all sorts of things. You may have just lost your spouse or your significant other, and who knows, so we just need to say it's not all about us.
Yes. People are
And I
struggling
think
with so many things on a daily basis. Like you just listed out so many different things. And those are invisible illnesses too, right? Depression, mental health issues, even just somebody losing a spouse or a parent or whatever. Like these are things that people are dealing with on a daily basis. And you might see somebody and, somebody cuts you off and it's like, well, maybe they're driving to the hospital, or maybe we don't know.
Yep, absolutely. But I think that's kind of what your organization is trying to do as well, is let people know what's going on in the world, and how to better understand people. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what you do and what that organization stands for.
Yeah, thank you so much. So One Girl Revolution, I started it 4 years ago because my background's in PR and media. And I worked in DC for a bunch of years, moved back to Michigan, and really saw a need for women's stories to be told, not by other people, not by the news media, but by the women themselves. And so it started as a podcast, and that has now grown into a nonprofit multimedia platform where we highlight the stories of everyday women and girls who are making a difference in the world. We have 179 episodes of the podcast. Next week will be 108. It's amazing, like how much it's grown, and individual stories. I always joke that I'm not an expert on anything, but I invite experts in their field to be experts in living. So it's not even that they're an expert on a particular topic, but they have lived experience to share their stories. And it's so important for us to learn from other people in every single conversation. And I know that's what you do with your podcast as well. Every single conversation, I go in with my eyes wide open, and I want to learn and grow and be challenged. I want the way that I look at the world to be challenged, and I want to make a difference. All of us want to make a difference in the world. We want to be the change that we see, the need that we see in the world. And a lot of times we think that we can't do it. I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, I don't have the time, I don't have there are all these different reasons we talk ourselves out of it. And so a big part of One Girl Revolution is helping all of us. And it's not just, we highlight women and girls because there is a distinct need for their stories to be told in a new way. But it's really for everyone. It's for everyone to listen to these stories and say, you know what, I can do that. Or, survivor stories. Sometimes it's somebody's been through assault or human trafficking, or, the list goes on. And it's somebody who has lived experience and they're like, you know what, I can rise above this. Resilience is a word that comes to mind when I think about these women and girls. They've been through hell and back in a lot of ways, and their example and their stories and what they're doing to be the change in the world inspires everyone. It inspires me. And a lot of times it's not the big thing, right? You don't have to start a nonprofit organization to make an impact. Sometimes it's those little things like you and I are talking about, where it's like you see somebody in a grocery store and they're struggling, and you ask, can I help you carry your groceries out? Or I'm tall, so sometimes I'll, like, if somebody's trying to reach something, I can reach up and grab something on the top shelf for people. But really taking these moments throughout our day-to-day lives and saying, what can I do to make the world a better place? And what can I do to help others? So Like I said, it started as a podcast and now it's grown. We have documentaries, a documentary series that was nominated for an Emmy, which is incredible. So I encourage people to watch those documentaries. They're on our website and then on YouTube. And then we just continue to grow and evolve and find new ways to highlight women's stories.
That's fantastic. A couple of things came to mind and I'll probably forget by the time I'm done, but do you know how appreciative I am? Because I'm one of those people that's in the scooters in the grocery store, right? And I'm going, oh crap.
Yeah.
Right. How the heck am I gonna get down? I'm looking up there at that top shelf and people are going by and wish I had to go to the bathroom the other day so badly. And there's a guy standing right next to the door of the handicapped restroom in this grocery store. And I'm going, trying to get the scooter to go up to the door and figuring out how to get the door up. And I go, excuse me. And then dum-dum wouldn't even turn around and look to help me open the door. It was just crazy. So anybody that sees somebody trying to reach for something in the grocery store, please help.
Yeah. But just slow down, right? There's so many times that I go to the grocery store and it's like, I'm a woman on a mission. I got, there are 5 things I'm going in there for. Usually I come out with 10, like every person. It's like I go in for a couple of things and come out with some random stuff that I saw. But really slowing down and saying, what does it take, Nancy? What does it take? It takes me 10 seconds to slow down and like grab something for you, or 10 seconds or even a minute, right? To have a quick exchange or conversation with somebody. 1 minute, that's not going to set me back any more than I already am.
That's right. And it just means so much to the person that's trying to do something. I tell you, that is the biggest blessing in the world when somebody comes up to me and says, can I help you?
It changes people's day, right? Like there are times where you're probably there and you're having a rough day like everybody else, and somebody takes a moment just to say hello to you or ask if they can help. That will change the trajectory of your day. And then we also feel good about it because we slow down to help another person.
Yeah. And I'm happy to help get something off of the bottom shelf.
Right.
But what, something I didn't know that I just learned right now is I grew up in Michigan. I moved to Washington, D.C. I was there for 35 years. I started out in PR. I worked with a PR company.
Wow.
And then moved back to Michigan, 35 years later. And now I'm in Alabama. But, I think that's really, really interesting. And I'm going, all right, what PR firm did you work with?
Right. Well, DC is so small and so is Michigan. It's like everybody is interconnected. It's like everybody knows everybody, it's like Kevin Bacon, right? 6 degrees of separation. We probably know some of the same people from DC and same with Michigan. And, but
funny. Well, and so many people, we're down here in Huntsville now, and we're the people across the street that moved in right after we did, they were renting and they had a house built and moved out of it, but they're from Michigan. The people from the church that we go to, they're from Michigan. It's amazing how many Michiganians there are down here. So it's interesting how, the touch reaches out to everybody. So, I love the fact that we're telling these stories. I have, if you want to say, talking about an expert, I have a PhD. I am pretty much an expert in disability, but it's the fact that I'm right there with the other women. It's the fact that I know on a firsthand basis what happens when you go into a doctor's office and the doctor says, well, I don't see anything wrong with you. Those are the situations that are the most important in any of our lives. And we can say that's why we have these groups that meet on a weekly basis, and why I have the podcast is because people, especially women with these invisible disabilities, we're so used to what is called masking, that we hide behind the mask so that nobody knows we've got these issues. We're so used to that we don't realize there are others out there that are going through the same thing that we're going through.
Yeah, we want our lives to look perfect. It's the social media culture. We look at other people on Instagram and we want to have what they have, and I think there's something beautiful with sharing the struggles as much as we're sharing the beautiful pictures too. And that's something, even as I'm saying it, I'm like, I probably should be better about sharing the struggles of Job syndrome, and even like with eczema, like having that, because it gives other people the freedom to share their stories. And life is
Yeah,
not perfect. Life
no,
is
it's not.
not Instagram. It's these real life lived experiences. And sometimes life is beautiful and sometimes it's difficult. Most of the time it's a mix of all the different things, where it's beautiful and great and good and yeah,
Yeah,
difficult and bad.
I keep being told, well, you talk about the bad things, talk about the good. Nobody's going to want to listen to you because you always talk about the bad. And I say, well, first of all, I don't. But
You don't. I know you, and I know that you don't.
secondly, in order to be able to talk about the good, we have to talk about what comes first, and
Mhm.
that's the bad. And
Yeah.
if it's the fact that, I mean, I have been trying for 4 months to get in to see a new endocrinologist here in Huntsville, because I drive 2.5 hours each way to Nashville to see an endocrinologist right now. And that's exhausting to have to go 5 hours for a 15-minute doctor's appointment. So I've been trying for 4 months, and I've still got a month and a half to go before I can get in to see this new doctor. And then who knows whether they're gonna say, they can do anything to help me, or whether I need to just keep going to Nashville. You've got to understand that when you have a disability, particularly the invisible kind, that, a lot of times they'll say, well, it's hard to have a disability. I'm in a wheelchair, I'm blind, I'm deaf, all that. You don't have anything that looks wrong with you. Well, that actually makes it almost harder, because when you don't have anything that the people can see, like the guy with the lost limb and the diabetes, it was, as long as it was a disability they could see, they understood it, they felt for him, they were able to support and empathize with him. But when he said, no, it's not that, it's what's going on inside, that's the problem, they walked away from it. They didn't want to hear it.
Mhm.
So, you've got to share the lived experiences. And that's what I think is so important about your podcast and everything that you're doing. And I believe that as someone who has an invisible disability, it is our responsibility to stand up and share
Yeah, it gives
to
other
some
people
extent.
Yeah, it gives other people hope. And even like as you were sharing about your endocrinologist, I have cataracts in both of my eyes, which is from when I was a child. Terrible eczema. Doctors just started pumping me full of steroids. So the cataracts that I have, I'm only 38 years old. I shouldn't have cataracts, but I have cataracts in both eyes because of the steroid usage at such a young age. And I've had the same experience, Nancy. Because I keep going to eye doctors and they're like, oh, nothing's wrong. Like I see the cataracts, but like you should be able to see. Like I don't understand why you can't see. And I have a really difficult time when it's sunny out and like I have to wear specific sunglasses, and the struggles that I go to, even like just to read a receipt. Like I can't read that. I keep having like friends or my husband or other people like, hey, can you read this and tell me like what this says? I'm only there 38 years old. Why am I like acting like an old person? I need like readers or something to like be able to read this stuff. But that like I got bumped from eye doctor to eye doctor. Finally, fingers crossed, hopefully a month from now, I'm supposed to go to a new eye doctor who specializes in cataract surgery, because also it's complicated because I'm too young to get the cataract surgery. They're like, I wouldn't mess with that now. I'd wait until you really, really need it. So there are complexities to it as well that people don't see. If they don't see it, and it's like, no, I struggle with that every single day. And so sharing those experiences and talking about it, it gives other people hope. It gives other people resources. It also gives other people the courage to ask questions and build your army. Like I've started thinking about that. Like, okay, who are my people who can help me with like all my health related stuff? You know, who are people that I can go to for a second opinion? And that's really what I'm trying to do with this eye doctor. Like, okay, I have, you know, I've gone to a couple of different eye doctors, but like, who is the real person? But then I can go back to some of the other people and ask questions. And we need to create spaces for people to ask questions. And also in the medical community, there needs to be more openness to other solutions. Like I shared at the beginning, just about what my sister and I have done. We are in a lot of ways, I think, doing better than most people with Job syndrome. We're not on any medications. There are things that we take from time to time as we need them. We also, you know, are constantly monitoring different things. I know in the winter months, we're always worried about pneumonia or things to do with our lungs, but really monitoring that. And if I needed to take medication for any of those situations, I would. But the medical community is not open to any of these alternatives. Food, you know, you look at Monsanto and all the things that are affecting what's in our food. You look at the labels of things and all of the different chemicals that are pushed into things. I remember when I was a little kid, my mom would only buy Post cereal. So I don't think it's even around anymore. If it is, I don't think we have it in
It's
Michigan.
not. The factory's still there.
But my mom would never let us have Kellogg's, because Kellogg's, they put BHT and MSG into the cereal. But if we wanted sugar cereal, we could get Post, because they only put the chemicals in the packaging. And I look back at that, Nancy, and I'm like, this woman, like my mom was a woman before her time. This was before Whole Foods. This was before Trader Joe's, before all the different food abilities that we had, or different food companies and things that were being produced. And she was like piecemealing stuff together and saying, you know, I've noticed that my kids, when they eat this particular food because it has BHT or MSG in it, it's making Kate's eczema worse, or it's not helping Delia with her pneumonia. And we need to be asking those questions, and the medical community needs to be more open to all of that.
Well, and on top of that, and that's one of the things that we're working on too, is if you can find an alternative specialist, they much better get the situations. But insurance doesn't cover most alternative doctors. And one of my board members has Lyme disease, and she doesn't have insurance, and she cannot get a normal doctor to take care of her. They won't, the minute she says anything about Lyme's, they turn and walk away. She just went to see her doctor this week, and it cost $200 for a half an hour follow-up appointment. You know, people can't afford that. I don't know about you, but I sure can't, you know. And we've got to be able to do something about this so that we've got the best care and it doesn't break us. Because what winds up happening is, I don't have $200, I can't go see that doctor, I'm just going to stay sick.
Yeah, exactly. And also they don't have solutions, right? Like my dad had Lyme disease and it was attacking his heart. Didn't know that, because it's very difficult to test as far as I know. And so he was going to all these heart doctors because they were like, something's wrong with your heart. Well, little did we know that it was actually Lyme disease that was attacking his heart. And it was an alternative medicine that found that and was able to treat it and help him. And like, you know, they're talking about triple bypass surgery when it's like, oh, there's nothing in your, like, we're trying to do the surgery, but that we realize that there's no reason really to do it. We don't really know what's going on with your heart. So you also get where people are paying all this money for what? For what? No solutions. I had somebody on the podcast the other day that her husband lost all mobility at 25 years old. Doctors couldn't find solutions. So this girl is amazing. She went back to school got our MS in nutrition, started piecemealing stuff together, like my mom and like so many other people have done, and saying like, okay, what can I do? What are alternatives? And now her husband has regained most of his mobility and his health. He's a really healthy person.
Oh, thank
And
you.
so, yeah, we need to be asking these questions, but it all comes back to what you're doing with Invisible Warriors and what I'm doing with One Girl Revolution is creating these spaces for people to talk about the things that they want to talk about, to tell their stories, to share their stories in the way that they want.
Well, and I could go on all day, but unfortunately, our time is up, and I am going to need to say thank you so much, Kate, for this wonderful conversation. It's nice to see another Michiganian slash DCer slash Michiganian
Slash PR person.
person. I tell you, it's great. Thank you for all the wonderful information. And I know that it's going to give people a lot to think about. I really encourage everyone to go listen to her podcast. Give us where you can find it. I know it'll be in the show notes, but give us just, the URL to get to it.
Yeah, it's onegirlrevolution.com. So the number onegirlrevolution.com. You can find our documentaries on there, our YouTube, all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and it's all One Girl Revo. So the number One Girl REVO. And Nancy, thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Well, I've really enjoyed this. This has been great. I think we've got a new friendship going. And I always love that. I love to be able to connect at a deeper level with the people that I talk with, and I think we have. Hey guys, I'm glad you joined us today. You have been listening to Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly. If you haven't already, please give us a quick review and rating on iTunes. And don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. To wrap things up, often after a podcast, people want to know more about some of the things that we're doing at Invisible Warriors. And right now, we're getting ready for the Silent No More benefit concert on June 3rd. So you can see that live streamed, or if you are interested in coming to Huntsville, it's going to be a great concert with music and good food and good friends and cornhole, all sorts of wonderful things. But if you'd like to hop on a Zoom with me to find out more about the concert or about IW, my contact information will be in the show notes. And thank you all again for tuning in and listening to today's conversation. See you next week, same time, same place. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.